Hello, wrestling fans, and welcome to Tango. I'm Steve Fall, but it feels like I'm getting a Christmas present after that great holiday because I'm talking to the voices of the WWE for so damn long. It's Hugo Savinovich and it's Carlos Cabrera. How are you doing today?
¡Atángana! ¡Dímelo, Carlitos!
¡Por poquito!
Oh, my God. And the interview's over because nothing will top that. But thank you so much for being here because, honest to God, you guys were the voice for so many fans in the era of the WWE that everyone goes back and goes, man, I remember those good days. I wish it was like that still. But it always changes throughout generations. But how do you feel knowing that pretty much you're the soundtrack to a lot of fans and their experience watching the WWE?
It never stops being so amazing, the fact that so many fans tell us in person or via Facebook or whatever platform or whenever they have the chance that we represent their infancy. It's like we are so dear to them that it's something that is unforgettable because they became later grown-ups listening to us and following our style.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes, that Attitude Era, man, it's one of the biggest moments in our industry. And Carlos and I were right there where there was not too much politically correctness, and you could just go out and have some fun. It was not the big corporation. It was still a family business of Linda and Vince and Shane and Stephanie. And it was about guys and girls going out there and putting on the best show. And then you had the King, Lawler, JR. In Spanish, you had the best voice. Jim Ross said about Carlos La Voz Cabrera, he said, if I would have had only had Carlos' voice, and we were blessed in our industry to have Carlos fall in love with Lucha, with wrestling, and Carlos and Hugo in Spanish. Even today, I am so happy to say that the wrestlers come around and tell us, I still go back and listen to the call that you guys made, and it was a very important part of the industry. And unfortunately, not the companies, not Vince or Triple H now or Tony Khan, they don't know what Spanish culture is, and they're forgetting that we are 62.5 million Latinos in the United States. We went up from 50 in 2010 to now 62.5.
Wow.
We will reach 70 something within the next 10 years, and they are not taking care of their Spanish customers. And just like Daddy Yankee on his last tour and Bad Bunny proved that Spanish people have the money to go and watch beautiful shows, but you gotta cater to them. And I don't think that WWE and AEW, to just mention the two top companies, know what the heck they're doing with the Spanish customers. And we prove it because Carlos is working for us in AAA in Mexico. And I'm telling you, we are kicking butt in Mexico with AAA because the Spanish people want to get great shows. And Carlos and I, we know what we do in Spanish.
In other words, people are just asking for a little respect. That's all.
Right. Yeah. So let's go back to the 1999, Attitude Era, because really I think of, I didn't see or hear your voices because I was watching JR and Jerry Lawler. But every time they'd introduce you to the American audience, you got your 1 minute, 30 seconds to say something. But what was the respect value? Because we always hear stories of Vince McMahon yelling in JR's ear or Jerry Lawler's ear, telling him to say something. What was the relationship like with Vince on commentary? Was he feeding you lines? Was someone else doing this? I don't think really we know the full extent of what Vince's involvement was with you on commentary.
Yeah, they actually didn't produce us that much. Kevin Dunn will come on our ear and Vince, but he had faith in Carlos and I, and our relationship with Vince was so cool. We used to joke with him, and those were the times we didn't have to have a date or a meeting request to, and it was just crazy times. And he knew that Carlos was the voice, and he knew that I had my 20 years experience in the ring, and he knew how passionate I was. So we had the production meetings. He will go over, but he knew that we were business people, passionate oriented, and we will be 100% legit to what we did. Because as a matter of fact, my other job was to bring all the people aboard and teach the announcers from Korea, Russia. That was my job. Wow. To get the product of WWF into all these countries. So Vince knew that Carlos, his background as a reporter, TV anchorman, and all that, he knew that we only needed to be instructed on where the angle was going, and that Carlos and I will be passionate and loyal and faithful to transmit that to our Spanish audience.
So you weren't being yelled at, either or of you, because you always see it, like Mick Foley in his book once said he kind of like quit the WWEF because of being yelled at in his ear when he was joining the commentary team. So obviously your experience was not, he didn't really throw things at you. He believed in what you were saying.
On the contrary, I think, like Hugo said, Vince McMahon trusts us and respect us, and up to a certain point allow us to show our talent and to bring the passion that not too many people have into the product.
Right. And I think a lot of people think of when you're doing commentary, well, Vince McMahon obviously is not involved with you because he's not going to be speaking your language, unlike JR, he's getting yelled at in the ear, which is a whole different experience for you. But I think one of the main questions I think we all need to know is, why the hell do they always break the Spanish announce table? To me, that's weird. To me, it was like, oh, they're going outside. Well, Hugo and Carlos, you better back up because you're going to get smushed. Like, was it like, we don't care about your table, or we're just going to destroy it because it's funny?
No, listen, it was, remember that show in Comedy Central they had, we were like the Kennys of the WWE.
Oh my God, they killed the Spanish announce table.
Yes. And by the time they reached the main event at the Coliseums, if the Spanish table was not broken, the fans would start screaming that they wanted the table to break. And guys like Undertaker and the big stars, they was not part of the storyline. We didn't even know. For some reason, China would land on our laps. Carlos had his finger broken, my nose. It was like a dangerous zone to be at the Spanish table.
That's right.
The stars loved to be there, and the table was broken. I think, Carlos, you got to tell, I mean, this is the time for you to reveal that story at the beginning with the pin and Vince McMahon. You got to hit that story now. Steve, this is the first time that we want to reveal this story. This is for you.
Let's hear it.
Okay. Vince McMahon was supposed to be thrown backwards onto our table. And at that moment, the table was being held up by just a little pin, which I had to pull out. Oh. The thing is that I am pulling out this blessing pin, and it doesn't give away. And I see Vince flying already towards the table. My whole life passed through my sides. I said, oh my God, I'm the last second. Ooh, finally the pin is off, and boom. That was brutal.
So now, is your table held by a pin all day long, and if you like sneeze and touch it, or they come at you at a certain point and we're like, we're gonna jerry-rig this table to fall apart?
Yeah, that's another aspect of it. Well, it's been held together tightly, but then by the time the spot comes, they tweak it a little bit. And some of the times they had some of the methods of holding the table together.
But at that time, it was the pin. It was almost like an episode of Seinfeld, like with George and Seinfeld are almost like presenting this big product to NBC, and the show is about nothing. So we are the Spanish guys, and the big guy is supposed to fall backwards, and we're doing a great play-by-play. Give it a company to hold this, and now comes time for the pin. And I see Carlos.
I'm sweating bullets.
The credits are coming out. And, I'm thinking, oh boy, we're fired. We're fired.
Oh my God.
That's so for me.
And at that time, the tables are like, now they're made more light. At that time, it was a heavy duty table. So that pin, if that pin will not come out, I mean, it was like for sure, Vince will go to the hospital because it wasn't like now that they would just vote. You see somebody taking a power bomb and boom, it just collapses.
Right.
No, at that time, that freaking pin was the key to make the table collapse.
Because you always felt like your table would just like, if someone like was like, achoo, it would just snap into pieces. But yet, sometimes in current time, you'll see someone get powerbomb on the table and it doesn't break. And you're like, that looked really painful because right. It doesn't break. And it looks like someone got stabbed in the back.
Steve, sometimes the table broke when it was not supposed to.
Yes.
And that happened having Triple H and
Kurt Angle
on top of it. So Angle was knocked out. He doesn't know how the heck he ended the match. Yeah. It's a table that sometimes had a mind of its own.
Yeah, that was I think it was Rock, Triple H, and Kurt Angle, and they had to kind of improv that matchup because Angle is now concussed, and that's insane to think about it. But so are you the Vince McMahon story? Obviously, you were warned. Hey, you got to pull this pin. Here he comes. Other moments like Mankind where you don't know. These things are happening. Like you're like, oh, they're doing commentary. You're staring at your monitor, and you're like, wait a minute.
Yeah, and
oh my God, here comes somebody.
Yeah, and you will see like China, the Undertaker, just boom, being thrown on our table. It was the big return of Shawn Michaels in San Antonio, over like 70,000 people at the Alamo Dome.
Oh yeah, Royal Rumble '97.
And then out of nowhere, it was winter, and as soon as the show was over, I was part of the creative team, so we were gonna go into that charter plane, and we had the instructions. As soon as the show's over, we go. So we dressed with the motif of being in Texas, the cowboy look and the shirt and the boots, and we're doing the play-by-play, Carlos and I. Shawn Michaels, and then we were really into our play-by-play, and Shawn comes right by the table, and he goes behind the table, and he pulls my cowboy boot, and I said, "What the heck just happened?" And then he hits. I don't remember who he was.
He was fighting Sid,
and he hits him and throws my boot into the audience. And it's winter, and they never got my boot back. So
it's a souvenir somewhere. Someone has that souvenir right now. Your smelly boot.
As soon as the pay-per-view is over, we gotta go into the shutter plane. So now I gotta go outside to the limo, and one boot and snowing in San Antonio. My sock is wet. I go into the shutter, so that was one boot. Wet sock into Los Angeles for the big conference. And then finally over there, I bought shoes and everything. But there was a lot of things that we didn't know. And the Spanish table was a center of craziness. And one time China falls on the table and Carlos' finger is completely like bent.
Right there.
Oh. See? That's the finger.
This is the Undertaker throwing Mankind onto the table, and Mankind's boot heel just landed on my finger. And the best of it is that then Hugo tells me, go to George the Animal.
George the Animal's
He knows how to fix it.
Yeah,
right.
He was a coach for the football team. He was a coach for football team. So he knew about injuries. I said, don't worry, Carlos. I got you covered. George the Animal Seal will take care of it. And I said to George the Animal Seal, hey, my buddy Carlos, look at the finger. It's completely twisted. He said, I'll take care of it. And he takes Carlos' finger and goes, rah! And down the finger just went left, completely hanging.
I didn't know if I had to cry or laugh. It was so painful.
And George the Animal Seal says, sorry guys, it didn't work.
It didn't work?
Yeah, the finger is completely hanging up.
So very interesting that you're saying that, like, sometimes you're warned, sometimes you're not warned about someone landing on you, because that seems like a kind of a safety hazard when you're at work, because you're supposed to be supplying commentary for what's in front of you. Yet they're constantly breaking your tables and dropping people on top of you. Like JR or Jerry Lawler, I believe, would be warned ahead of time, hey, this is going to happen. Taker just whipping China or Mankind or someone on top of you. Is there kind of an unhealthy work environment where you're saying to yourself, you're like, I like my job, but like my nose got broken, my finger got broken?
I think, like more than 90% of the time, it's something that it's been planned, and very well planned at that.
Yeah.
I remember the very first time that somebody came on our table. I think it was Bret Hart, and I think it was maybe Diesel throwing bread on top of the table.
Survivor Series 95.
There you go. And the thing is that we had no room behind the table because the fence is right there. So I had no way of moving backwards. So I was clipped on my knee the very first time. So, hey, I learned that sometimes it's kind of risky, but hey, we survived it.
Right. True. But yet, at the same time, it's like, I want to supply my voice to this beautiful thing in front of me. But yet when the monitor is broken, again, this is what JR used to say was he would go by the monitor, not what he can see with his eyes. Because obviously if you look up, you see everything. But if you're looking at a monitor, you're seeing what the story they're trying to tell with the camera. Yes. For you, once the monitor goes out, what are you looking at? Like, how do you continue on?
Okay, it was tough because you gotta go by the monitor when you're a play-by-play guy, because that's the way to know what the audience is watching.
Right.
And when that thing got broken, or sometimes in the middle of the battle, the cables were disconnected, and we didn't have the monitor going on. We had to be like as close as we could think about what is the director, what is Kevin Dunn, what is his assistant director now given to the people, until we finally got our because sometimes the whole thing was destroyed and there will only be like one little monitor that somehow survived, and it was Carlos and I trying to look at the monitor at the same time. Guys, now there's no table anymore, so guys are fighting right where, and then Carlos and I are trying to fight for the little monitor to survive, because that is our view to know what the people are watching at home.
Yes. It was amazing the way sometimes things became so awkward. But at the end, when we reminisce, we got to laugh about it because it was a lot of fun.
Right, of course. Again, it's just, I know it must be hard at the same time. You're trying to do your job, but yet now your table's broken. Okay, well, there goes my soda or my water. Oh, where'd that go? Oh, my pen's missing. My lucky pen. Oh, my boot's being thrown to the crowd. Oh, my God. And now I have one monitor, and when you're fighting for a cable, it just feels like you're in jail a little bit. Like, it feels like you're fighting for the scraps that you can hold on to. But, man, the Spanish announce table, I feel like forever. Like, if someday there's a Hall of Fame and it's you two going in together, the Spanish announce table, I think, needs to go in with you, because that thing took more beatdowns than you, I feel like, right?
Yeah, it was. I don't think that Attitude Era will be ever forgotten, because the combination of storylines and things that made sense, and it wasn't the big corporation, the big monster, the WWE. It was still a family-owned business, and I think with that, the flavor was different. In a way, it's like success could bring all the money in the world, but sometimes becoming that huge just takes a lot of the flavor. It's not the same to cook a home meal that when a whole chain of restaurants cook that meal. It might be good, but it's never like that first restaurant that you fell in love with the menu and the way the waitress treated you and the way that chef treated you. And I think those were the times and those were the days of WWF. And I'm very upset, as a matter of fact, that we do this for AAA. We do our world is Lucha Libre. Like, people say that there is more fun in Lucha Libre online than what is actually going on the top companies. And trust me, and to me that's sad, because I love Lucha, I love wrestling, and right now if you check the play-by-play on WWE in Spanish and AEW, it is horrible, and that is not increasing the fans. And for Carlos and I, it's sad, because we will prepare. We will talk to wrestlers like at the catering room. We will go to a big show, to a Triple H, to the Undertaker, to Stone Cold, to The Rock, and we want to go in their heads and find out how they're approaching this big WrestleMania moment. And being that Carlos is the guy with the background of being a newspaper guy and a reporter and an anchor, he brought that discipline into doing things the right way, putting information into the right context. And right now, with all the success that wrestling has, unless you check us out in Lucha Libre Online or AAA, you will not see a real Spanish play-by-play, because the guys that are doing it right now they're not even half close to what Carlos and I did. And I don't say this as an ego because I'm also a producer. Like this Sunday, I will go and help MLW to produce shows. This is my third show with them. I do big events around the world with independent companies. I love what I do, and it's always been about the passion. And it hurts me that, with the exception of a Daddy Yankee or a Bad Bunny, Lucha Libre or wrestling, they're not catering to the Spanish culture, and they got to look around. I mean, they will get Bad Bunny into a WrestleMania, yet he has success with Spanish audiences and the big companies.
But do you think that's a reason because it's fast money versus long money, where you can eat, like what you're talking about, working back into Spanish announcers, working back into gaining back your old audience? That's a long game. But how do you make quick money fast? And unfortunately, it probably involves doing some things only for American audiences, unfortunately, to get that money quick, making guaranteed money with Saudi Arabia, guaranteed money with Peacock, guaranteed money with Fox. I'm guessing. But you're bringing up... Don't forget
that one of the biggest sources of income for any wrestling company that is respected around the world is the Hispanic market.
Of course.
And we were fortunate enough in the beginning to get into a very difficult market like Mexico and compete and conquer their hearts. And we did it because we had passion, we had quality, and we spoke Spanish correctly. That's how come we did it. That's all they need.
So let's back up for a second. Let's go to the Attitude Era for a second. That wrestling, some people live in the wrestling bubble. And then 1999, we'll go in the Attitude Era. That bubble was no longer, it bursted. It was huge. It took over the world. I could go to a gas station and buy a DX shirt. I could go to the store that only sold like girl hair products, and there is a Stone Cold Steve Austin barrette. In today's world, you don't have that. I go to a gas station things. I go to a girl store, there's girl things. Why do you feel like that happened over the course of years? You brought up kind of quality versus quantity, as in we're making more money than we ever have, but is the quality there? We're getting more money, but like the product isn't where you're imagining it once was. Now, is that kind of, I'm feeling from what you're saying to me is you feel like it doesn't matter that you're making more money, but yet to the stockholders, unfortunately, that's all that matters. And before there was a stock market, the company was run by the family. The company was run by just instinct and gut. It's no longer run like that. It's run by how much money can we make and how fast can we make it and what markets are doing well. Before, you did go to small towns just to go to that small town. Now, it's not that way at all. So with all wrestling companies you're talking about, how do you feel like they could increase their viewership with the Hispanic audience? Because again, like you said, it's huge. Yeah,
even just to begin, we reported Lucha Libre Online, and we are very transparent, and we don't kiss ass. So I titled that Triple H failed with his first Raw of the year, because it was not the way to start the first show, and we will come out and say it. So when you have all this money and you have these big contracts, sometimes that power of making that money in Saudi Arabia and going overseas and drawing over 60,000 people, sometimes ego will inflate in a way that, like for Vince leaving the company, Triple H takes over. As long as the stocks are somewhere paralleling to not losing that much money, there's no big commotion, because they have the money and they got all these deals, this merchandising, this royalty. But the product itself, if you were to be honest about the product, they have the talent, but they don't have the creative force behind. They do things that make no sense, and they are forgetting, just like before, whenever they didn't have money, they're going to the Latino countries and make huge money. But now they don't need that much, the Latino countries, even though Triple H says he will have NXT, Latin America, all that, because they have so much money that they will go with the quick hits, Saudi Arabia, the big contracts with the big companies. But you have in the United States 62 million Latinos that love soccer, love lucha, love big shows, and they don't know how to cater. Vince said to me one time when I was talking to him about this, and he said to me, Hugo, just because I am the owner it doesn't mean that I control everything, because there's many bosses in the company.
Yeah.
And for a lot of them, Latino customers are not a priority. And that's one of the big mistakes they are committing, because somebody's going to hit it right, and they're going to lose that clientele. And when they need that money, Latinos are not going to be there for them. With AAA, if we just get a contract with Telemundo, which is part of NBC, or Univision, if we were to get a big contract, AAA, with Carlos' voice and my voice and the Lucha style, with some American and foreigners on the storylines, Conan is the creative guy, I'm part of the creative team, I could tell you right here, we could kick WWE's ass and AEW, because we have already a base of over 62 million Latinos, and the American people, you know that the luchadores, the people are falling in love with them all over the world.
Yep.
Someone needs to take care of their Latino customers, and the big companies in the United States are not doing it.
Let's talk about AAA then for a second, because I think one of the biggest things over the past 20 years, it's been WWE, New Japan, AAA. And as long as I can remember, those were the companies that everyone gravitated to. New Japan over the past 5 years started New Japan Strong, which became kind of like an American version of New Japan, so they could reach out to more American audiences. AAA, every time there's a big event, it makes noise. But how can, like you brought up, Telemundo, Univision, how can they reach an American audience faster? Because I've talked to a lot of different companies recently, Germany, WXW, they're trying to, gain the American audiences. They already have their audience, but they're looking for the American one. How do you think Triple H can pull that off? Because I know about him because I'm a wrestling fan.
Yeah.
But the rest of the world needs to know.
I think with Conan as a head creative, we have a good creative team. I'm part of it. Dorian and our president, Licenciada Marisela, in spring of this year, they will be launching in Cancun, Broadway meets Lucha. It's an arena they have created. It's called Lucha Titlan, and it's a whole world of just Lucha, like if you go to Broadway or Vegas. So I think that's going to put more noise into the aficionados around the world, but we need to either through YouTube or to get a contract with NBC or Univision for the fans to see us not only in Triple Mania, but during the year. If we could get people to see our product, they will fall in love with it. And I think that this year we are going to do that. And I think once we do that, then people are going to have the opportunity to choose from what they see already in TV. And we don't have boring talking interview segments. We have very little talking. We do believe it's part important of the show, but we try to concentrate more on creating the big moments. And I think that's going to be our way of putting AAA into the whole world market. It's called AAA, Lucha Libre Worldwide, with the Broadway meets Lucha, a theater, an arena created for that purpose. I think that's going to eventually bring that show into Broadway and Vegas. So I think this 2023 is going to be big year. Having Carlos on our big shows, combined with Guillen and myself, and each has Carlos is the Colombian tiger, Guillen is the Mexican lion, and I'm the Ecuadorian panther. Because that used to be my wrestling name when I broke into the business.
Yeah. So
we keep it in a way that there's an intimacy with the fans, and I don't think they're getting that from AEW or WWE. And New Japan Pro Wrestling has a strong style. We have Lucha style, but we also have the good storylines, and we got some of the American logic into it. So we are more creative to do well, not just in Mexico, but once they see our product. We were just in Arizona a few months ago, in Tempe, Arizona, and the fans fell in love with the product. It's just that we don't have yet the vehicle. Once we get that vehicle, be it Telemundo, Univision, it's going to be huge. We believe that this is the year that the fans are going to fall in love internationally with the AAA. That COVID thing slowed us down because we were supposed to be even in Japan this past year with one of the Triple Mania. Yeah. We had 3 Triple Manias. It averaged over 15,000 each. And we are on the top of TV Azteca in Mexico and Multimedios, and we got a Space TV. And so in Mexico, WWE is not strong because
Right.
we have the power there, and even as much money as they spend and all the money they haven't been able to recover Mexico, and I don't think that they will because Latino fans are very upset the way that American companies treat the Latino wrestlers, and it shows because they did not sell out on their two shows they had in Monterrey and Mexico City. They only averaged about 7,000 fans. And for WWE worldwide success, Mexico is not happening. And while we're there, Carlos and myself and the whole Conan, Dorian, and Cecilia Manicena, I think AAA is growing. We're becoming better. And the better that we become, the better product we're going to present to the whole world. And we are about to do that.
Oh, by the way, it has to do with the topic, the fact that already the chemistry between AAA and WWE was shown to the world in Royal Rumble '97.
Yeah.
As you remember, we had El Rudo, Arturo Rivera with us, with Hugo Savinovich and Carlos Cabrera narrating the action. And we had humongous talent like Mil Mascaras and Pierre Rod and Hector Garza Canek, etc., during that show. So why don't we try to come back to that and make it even bigger? Because already people in Mexico, and remember that the majority of followers, Hispanic-speaking followers in the States are Mexican. They need to have that again.
This is true. I know the relationship between WWE and everyone felt like forever it's Vince's world, and if you're not in it, I don't want to talk to you. And now with Triple H at least involved, there seems to be relationships growing and seeds are planted. They might grow into a beautiful tree. They might grow into nothing. But it seems that some things are being planted. And you did bring up, 97 Royal Rumble. And at one point, the WWF did go out and try to grab onto that a different audience was Super Astros.
Yeah.
It aired from 98 and 99. Now, this was peak WWF, Attitude Era. So the fact that they took the money they were making and invested into this idea of let's do this. Now, when you were told they were going to go out and try to do this show, was there inspiration inspired by how WCW had the luchadors and all that? Because the WWF did not have that. They had big men, and that was their kind of their shtick. WCW started having all different styles. Every match, you had megastars, you had superstars, luchadors, and people from England. What was the inspiration behind Super Astros?
Yeah, well, I believe that being that we were whipped every Monday night in those Nitro and WWF wars, that it was so sad to get our ass whipped every Saturday, every Monday. But the fact that there was a lot of Mexican stars on Nitro from La Parca and all these guys that were bringing a lot of action, and it was like that Vince knew that he had to touch that community. And the problem was that Carlos and I were very successful on the show. They wanted 1 hour. The problem was that Univision only wanted to give Vince $40,000 per episode of 1 hour. And at that time, we were not allowed to say anything about pay-per-view. Univision was paranoid about pay-per-view and all that. So having a show where we could not sell pay-per-view, we could not talk about our big events. Vince said, I'm going to be getting $40,000 for each show, where I have to buy tickets every week for the Mexican wrestlers, the Puerto Rican wrestlers. And they had from stars like from Hijo del Santo, the son of a legend of the Mexican wrestling. It was not profitable. And Linda McMahon talked to the guy that was the president of Univision at the time and said, you gotta see the future. And the future is internet. And they said, no, we don't want anything to do with internet. And now Univision sells even cars on the internet. They're making more money on the internet and on TV. But Linda McMahon was ahead of her time. Many people talk about the success of Vince, and they're forgetting that Linda had so much to do with the success of the company. The business guru was Linda in many ways. And Univision was successful, but they were not willing to pay more than $40,000. And Vince said, I want to do this, but we cannot have a show for 40,000 that every week I'm losing money on it, and that was bad. But that was the window that if Univision would have had seen more clear, and they would have paid Vince more money, I guarantee you, like right now, there will be more Alberto Del Rios, more Rey Mysterios, more Eddie Guerreros, because the more money you make, the more you're going to go out to create more of the Latino talent. And that didn't happen because Univision at the time did not have the mind to see what internet was going to, and the money to invest on a product that was getting better ratings than their top candid camera show. We had a better rating that showed it, and that was like the Spanish candid camera version, and we were beating that.
Wow. It's funny you say that because I don't speak Spanish. So I actually sought out this show. You know, when I was a kid, I would go find it and make sure I could see it. I didn't know what you guys were saying, but I was enjoying watching WWF. And randomly you'd see like clips of Steve Austin and Rock and Taker, but it was very rare to see clips of it. I'm just surprised that 40 grand for an episode during the time that the WWF is the hottest, but yet you're talking about Univision being afraid of pay-per-view buy rates, even afraid of talking about the internet, because just like, you know, I bet the newspaper didn't want to talk about TV when it first came out because they saw if we allow you into the internet, that means Univision loses money off of their ad sales on TV. Of course, now it's a joint venture. You can watch, you know, programs at the same exact time on the internet and on TV. But at the time, very interesting you bring that up, only $40,000 an episode. That seems like a slap in the face, especially for the time. Now, maybe it was the idea of let's create some stars on this show, Super Astros, and let's see if they do well on Super Astros, and we'll take them and plot them on Raw. You know, I don't remember Papi Chulo being a big character except with Libre for a little while. But then he would appear on Super Astros sometimes. So I'd be like, okay, so like there is some symmetry here. But what was your thoughts on this? Was this supposed to be a Spanish show, or is it supposed to be a place that we can see if a superstar will break out and we can shove them on Raw?
I think that Vince had that clear picture of seeing what got over, and it was a very difficult time because a lot of people in WWF at the time, they did not really care for anything that had to do with the Spanish market. They didn't see it as productive, and it was more Linda and Vince that had that open mind to say, hey, the Spanish community is growing, and they were right. It was just a problem of the people that were around Vince did not see that. It was very hard to push Latino wrestlers. Very few were.
So wait, then did both of you have a problem with respect backstage as well? Because you're bringing this up where it's like JR and Jerry Lawler probably looked at as maybe a different light than you are. Because if they're thinking that you're part of this group that they don't see money in, how is that coming off to you backstage? Is that a problem? Do you feel this? Are you hearing whispers about this, both of you?
Honestly, I never felt that way. Like Hugo said, we always did whatever we did with integrity, a lot of passion. And
yeah,
we knew that this was a big step for WWE to be involved in this kind of show. We got maybe the majority of talent being smaller, not huge like people are used to see. And if Vince McMahon and Linda McMahon had faith in that, we were, loyal to the cause.
Okay. Yeah, because
it was a problem too that because they didn't have the budget for Univision, we used to do Super Astros before they went live on Raw.
Yeah.
So that was very hard because we would work in towns like in Idaho and that I had never seen a Spanish luchador or hear about this name, Hijo del Santo. So it was like, hey, we came to see Raw. What the heck is going on the ring? Why are these people speaking Spanish? So we also didn't have like the right atmosphere. But even with all the obstacles, once people started seeing what the heck these luchadores were doing, they might have not known who they were, but they were like getting into the action, and that was fun. And because of the fact that action was good, it was not like a boring time. But for the people, a lot of people in the production, for them it was like, oh man, now we're doing this Spanish stuff and it's more work, and so I don't think that the attitude was correct with a lot of people. I think the attitude was correct from Vince and Linda, Shane and Stephanie, but I don't think that a lot of people there understood what now you and I, and many people know, we are 62 million people just in the States. And if you look at Mexico, where lucha is a culture, and you look at Chile, and you look at all these countries. By the way, this was not even going after I left WWF to these countries for 5 years. And as soon as I started doing my shows and bringing guys like Rey Mysterio, the Hardys against the Young Bucks and ladder matches, started selling out places, Vince started going back into Latin America. So he knew then that he couldn't leave it open for me. And I went to Colombia before the COVID, and we did over 1,000 people. And 3 months after that, Vince was there with his product. So he follows that. And what we have to remember is that maybe they don't see it as important, the Latino community and the 62 million right now. Yeah. But if somebody else starts hitting gold with the Latinos in the United States and around the world, Vince will do what he did in UK. Remember in UK, everything was like just small companies.
Yeah.
A bigger company started coming in, and then Vince brought Drew McIntyre back and did NXT UK. He will hit back, or WWE will hit back when they know that someone is about to take that from them. Until that happens, they got so much money. They got so much money that they don't see it yet as important. And that is a shame, because if you go from the English play-by-play on Raw into the Spanish play-by-play, you might not understand. But right now, you know that Spanish sucks right now on WWE and on AEW. And it's a shame because they're not getting the customers. They're not getting the 62.5 million available customers that we know. If you add 62 to another 20 million that are not like legal records in the States, we're talking, and this is big, of around 80 million Latinos that love lucha, love shows, and they're not doing anything for them.
Right. You make a lot of good points. I obviously don't work for the company, but I have a feeling that all that guaranteed money you hit the numbers you're throwing out, I hear, but they're going, well, yeah, but are we going to make that money back? We want guaranteed money versus trying hard for money. And that's the unfortunate nature, I think, right now with that company. AEW, its own beast, its own animal, doing its own thing. So,
but I think WWE is at least trying to have into account the results, the recent results in Monterrey and Mexico City, bring to WWE huge figures like Dragon Lee, for example. Yeah, they're trying to little by little try to get in there again.
I think with Triple H, he's trying. Yes, with Vince McMahon, I don't think he was trying at all. Like Hugo brought it up, if you see someone else making money, I want to go over there. If you have a lemonade stand and you're making money, he wants to build another lemonade stand next to yours and paint the same colors as you and be like, no. But I'm just selling something different. It's the same thing, but it's different.
And by the way, that was on pay-per-view, our last event of the year, where Dragon Lee on the mic said that this was they beat FTR for the World Tags of AAA.
Yeah.
And the match was over. They were crowned champions, Dragon Lee said. And WWE had their cameras recording this. So talking about those things that never happened in the business, they were happening. Our company let them come in, and he said, Dragon Lee said, this is my last match in Mexico with the Mexican companies in AAA, because I have been signed with WWE. So there's not like we don't want to do business with WWE. It's just the fact that they know they got to do things. The part that they don't get is you already have Raw, you already have SmackDown, you already have the SAP. But if you don't use the SAP correctly, you have something there that you're not using. You're not going to gain new fans with horrible play-by-play. And Carlos will tell you, we love soccer. That's our passion. I'm from Ecuador. He's from Colombia. We will tell you, Steve, how it works. We will have the big screen of our TVs at home watching the game on TV.
Yeah.
And we had the little radio on a station from South America that had two good play-by-play soccer, real soccer announcers. And we had the volume off from the TV. That's exactly what's happening right now with WWE. We have Spanish people that a lot of them don't speak English, that they would rather hear the English play-by-play, because in Spanish, it's not even real Spanish, and it's not real wrestle talk.
Wow. See, again, my experience is completely different from obviously what different people are trying to gain from watching professional wrestling. They're not hearing the commentary you were supplying to so many fans. Again, I listened to you on Super Astros, not knowing what you were saying, but I felt the passion, I felt the desire to promote what you're talking about. So let's talk about something very timely. Recently, Monday Night Football, there was a very big tragedy with a blow and a football player going down, injured. And no one knows, as we're recording right now, I don't know what's going on. I don't know, anything about what's happening. I'm not a doctor.
We were covering it. We were covering it in Lucha Libre online, and seeing the football players praying and the game being called off.
Now that's what I want to talk about. Is because he falls down immediately. The first thing that goes into people's minds online is like, well, when's this game going to happen? Is this postponed? Is it temporary? What's going on? Then Owen Hart starts trending on Twitter. And I'm like, why is Owen Hart trending? And they click on it. And it's all about the conversation of the NFL actually said, we're not going to continue. Now, what you see it seems like the players decided we're not going to continue. You want us to start. We're not going to. We're grown-ass men. You can't force us. Owen Hart, passing away over the edge, 1999. With Vince McMahon says the show must go on, and they have like 3 more matches. Was there ever a consensus of the talent saying, putting their feet down? The main event, Steve Austin, Undertaker. These 2 men aren't going, we're not doing this. Or does everyone's like, well, the show must go on attitude? I want to hear both your perspectives on this, because the NFL I was super surprised they actually stopped this and didn't force it to continue, because it really screwed up other things in football.
Yeah, but that was the first time that it happened. Even in college football, it had never happened. They had some big injuries. That was the first time that they made a statement on Monday Night Football.
Yep.
Hey, this is bigger than the rating of the game. At the time, and I would love for Carlos to get his input first, and then I will come back to that. Carlos.
No, I was going to say something similar to that. Back then, it's not the same story as today. By the way, Damar Hamlin is still in critical condition, still in the hospital, and our prayers are, for him to recover, and also to his family. That was the case, and it was so awkward and horrendous. I felt like I was in another world when I had to continue doing what we started doing. I missed the actual moment when Owen hit the mat, but when I heard the thump, because I was reading a promo at the moment, I looked up and I saw the body bouncing, and that's all I remember. And then we had to continue. It was I believe it was a very difficult decision for Vince McMahon to continue the show, and I cannot criticize him for that. I think it was a brave decision at that moment.
Oh, Stephen, and we also gave you like one scoop that we haven't talked before here about the pin on the table. I'm going to tell you something that we haven't discussed publicly before, and to the extent we were like all day at the Kansas City Kemper Arena, if I'm not misplacing the name, Kemper Arena. Carlos and I were following Vince and his group because there was a mini that was going to be the sidekick of Blue Blazer, and they were not going to toast with alcohol. It was going to be like milk, and the little guy was part of us. He was part of our Super Astros originally, and Minimax was going to have a different name with Blue Blazer, so he didn't speak English. So Carlos and I, whatever they were shooting, because there was a lot of stuff. I don't know if they were ever going to be released because of the problem, the legal problem with the widow and everything. But there were vignettes filmed that day, and Carlos and I were there to tell Minimax, okay, this is what Vince and Bruce Pritchard wants you to say, and this is what you're going to do with the Blue Blazers. So we spent like the whole day contributing. You know what I remember? At one point, Vince comes back and says, has anybody seen the Blue Blazer? The Blue Blazer was like right next to him, but he was creating that mindset. He's a superhero. He's got the power to appear or disappear. And he was next to him and said, has anybody seen the Blue Blazer? And that to me was that is Vince at his best. When he could project stuff that created like an Undertaker, created a Rock, a Stone Cold, or a John Cena, because sometimes like we get carried away with just the bad things and we forget about the good things that he did. And he had Owen Hart cracking up, laughing. And that was our experience. Minnie Max laughing, the creative team laughing, Carlos laughing, I laughing. So now we are doing the play-by-play, and what the heck just happened? You know, because I knew something went wrong. And then you hear about he was like on his way to die, and he was screaming for Mike Chioda, the referee, to get out of the way because he didn't want to hurt him. And by the time that they took him to the hospital, Kevin Dunn said to Jim Ross, the King, and to Carlos and I, let the people at the Kemper Arena know that this is not a storyline, that this is something real that has happened. And that's what JR and the King said to the audience, and we said to our Spanish language audience. And at the time, we did not know that he was going to die. At the time, there was also not sure if we were going to continue. The part about keeping the show going was not like a 1 second, yeah, we're going to keep going. It was still like, what the heck is going to happen? Okay, and then we hear Kevin Dunn just tell the people that what just happened. It's very sad that Owen Hart is on his way to the hospital. And then the show went on, and then out of nowhere, we hear a trembling voice of Kevin Dunn saying, guys, and you could hear the voice breaking, and Kevin Dunn said, tell the fans that Owen Hart has died. And from that moment, Carlos and I, we did the play-by-play. We cried through the whole event, and when it finished, Kemper Arena looked like a nuclear disaster area, from the Big Show to Vince McMahon crying to Stephanie. Carlos and I hugging each other, people hugging each other. It was like we lost a brother. It was something that we were shocked. And 1 hour went by after the event, and usually the guys and the girls and we all get ready to just leave because we have early flights. We got to eat. It was like people just sitting down on the floor. Producers, there will not be, never. Now, I don't care how much I explain it to you, Steve, or how Carlos will explain it to you, to let you know that even today, when we talk about Owen, it was not just a wrestler, not a star, not just a member of the Hart clan. It was a human being that was so good. Oh, and about him and Bulldog doing tricks and stuff that they did. I mean, it was the humor. He would be the first one imitating his father. You bastard. And Owen was one of the best imitators, still are. And I would do some stuff like that, and we would have fun. Stu would be looking back to see who he was, and it was Owen Hart and myself on one of the big events. I remember that Carlos and I were almost got thrown out. Who was that? Booker T and Simmons. The four of us almost got thrown out of one of those big events because we were having our own little play-by-play. The four of us. But anyway, that Owen Hart, even today, Steve, it hurts me so much because not just of the talent we lost, but the human being that we lost. And prior to that in a WrestleMania, when they went into the 4-hour thing, but the announcers like Carlos and I, we went to the bathroom like 10 minutes before because you were stuck there, not just 4 hours. We did the half an hour before the 4 hours. So you have to go to the bathroom.
Yeah.
So I'm at the bathroom, and here comes British Bulldog and Owen Hart. And one of the guys, Bulldog, was doing a distraction in front of the door, and I didn't see Owen Hart stick a can of the shaving cream and got my tuxedo shoes full of the shaving cream, my underwear full of the shaving cream, and I only had like 4 minutes to clean up. So I was cleaning, and then I put my pants on, and Carlos helped me with the shoes and the pants, and they were laughing. They were laughing so much. And then the first match started, and then after the first match started, I started feeling something, and I realized they got me because it was menthol. It was menthol shaving cream. It was like, oh! And when the show finished, I went with my tuxedo on into the showers because I was on fire. But that was what Owen Hart was. A prankster. He was so fun. And
practical joker.
That day at the Kemper Arena, we lost somebody that made our days in the arena. He didn't care if you were Spanish, Chinese, Japanese. He didn't care if you were Vince McMahon. Linda, he had a way of just being fun. And that day at the Kemper Arena, we lost. I believe, and I say it, Brett was so good, but I believe that Owen Hart was at the right moment to even surpass his brother. And unfortunately, we lost, and it still hurts us very much.
Yeah,
right.
He was a great athlete and even a greater person for real. Not because he's deceased, but he was a great human being.
It's good to hear that you're sharing perspective of everyone that day as well, because it always comes down to that one last moment. Like no one ever really brings up the day of. It's always like, well, it was controversy, or there was this, there was that. It's always brought up of these bad times throughout that day. But you sharing the Vince McMahon story, looking for the blue blazer, and having a good time, it makes the day a little easier, because at least for me as a fan, because I wasn't there, so I have no emotional experience from that. Just kept watching it on TV, going, "What the hell just happened?" But the perspective of that day is always like this dark mystery. But yet, you bring it up that he was in good spirits, so that's good to hear as well.
And if it would have been me that had gone to that tragedy, from my perspective, coming from the dungeons of Calgary, of having Stu Hart as the father, Helen their mother, and having a legendary brother like Bret Hart, that at one point in Germany was like, he beat even the tennis great as the sportsman of the year. He beat the two top German stars in the world circuit of tennis. And yet Owen Hart was so humble. And I believe, and I could be wrong, but if it would have been me, and that was like my last day, I would have wanted the show to continue, because we were brought up like the show must go on. And the biggest tribute to me was to have our guys, and if you look good and close at the matches, even when they were selling a hold, if you go back and look at it, you will see guys crying.
Yeah, I was going to say, I recently watched Steve Austin versus Undertaker from that event. I don't know, I was just on somewhere and I watched it, and I was like, Steve Austin looks so angry coming to the ring. He looks so distraught. Like he doesn't, like Undertaker's is keeping his Undertaker composure, but like Steve Austin wants to be anywhere else besides there. You can clearly read on his face. But if you didn't know the backstory of that day, you wouldn't know exactly what happened. But I'm very happy you guys shared your perspective on that, because I think, again, you only hear so much about that day as in this negative light. And I don't work there. I'm not involved. I have no perspective on either side. I'm just glad that you shared your thoughts on that day, because it's something that still fans who grew up from that time are still puzzled, are still wondering why and what happened. Because like you brought up Bret Hart and Owen Hart being two of the greatest wrestlers of all time. When the Montreal Screwjob happened, Owen Hart disappeared for a month. He came back. As a fan, I thought, oh my God, he's going to be world champion soon. But Shawn Michaels having the stranglehold of the title in DX, and Bret Hart just left. Like Steve Austin was on the rise. There was no room for Owen Hart to get into that world title spot because of where they were going with Steve Austin. So it always felt very weird as an Owen Hart fan to see the unfortunate tragic ending of even his character, not the end of his life, his character. And I'm just glad you guys shared your thoughts today.
Yeah, and Owen had the wrestling skills, but he didn't have the microphone skills. And at the time of his death, he was so good now with the mic. Yep. And if you go back into promos with Yokozuna and him, Owen had developed the ability of getting into you. And that's what this great wrestler needed. He needed that mic, and he got it. And unfortunately, Kemper Arena, and that tragic moment took it from us. But this guy was so freaking good, and it was a shame that we didn't get to see the whole full story, the matches that JR and the King would have been able to call for the English audience, and Carlos and I. And Owen will come back and say to us, I don't know what the heck your guys saying, but I love to see the matches and put the SAP in Spanish because you guys make me feel good. And he had that ability to come and let you know how he felt. And he was always there to help the younger talent. And he was so respectful to the guys that were like the legends, from guys that were old timers to guys that were the main events. Never jealousy, never complaining. It was, I mean, I'm telling you right now, even today, as we talk about this, I could still see Vince McMahon just crying. And it was like, the scene there was just out of this world. It was, nobody wanted to leave the place. Everybody was hugging each other. And some people were just on the floor, sitting down. And the only people were moving because of they had to move the ring out where the two different crews that they have. By law, you're required to have two crews because when one has to rest, the other one will work. Those were the only guys making any movement. Other than that, it was a scary, silent moment. And it was like, I remember Carlos and I hugging and saying, what the heck just happened? Then immediately thinking about the pain on his brothers, the pain on his wife and the kids, because Carlos and I, we have kids, and it kind of just hit you immediately of what is going, if we're doing this and we don't know what the heck to do now. Carlos and I were just praying like, I wonder what is going through the mind of the rest of his family.
Right.
Then again, at the end, like you said, we had to ask ourselves what Owen would have wanted to happen after that event. So in a way, I think it's a homage to his great capacity as a human being and sportsman that we continue that night, even though we are suffering at that moment.
Yeah.
And I don't want to get into the politics of this, and I think that it's been well documented, but I don't think it's justice for him not to be at the Hall of Fame of WWE. I think that the wound is still open, and I think that will put a closure the right way that he deserves it. And I could see the frustration and all that on his widow, but she just recently did stuff with AEW on wrestling. So to me, it's like, how could you, and it's very hard to judge people. I'm not judging, I'm saying, if you could do AEW, why can't you do an exception of Hall of Fame? Okay, don't mention his name ever again, but let him have that moment of Hall of Fame, because I believe that he needs to be there. He needs to be.
I agree.
If the Hall of Fame is meant to honor people that contributed greatly and shine in our industry, it's a shame that Owen is not there. And if I'm upsetting the widow, forgive me. And you know that we love you and we love your kids, but this is strictly from my heart. I believe he deserves to be in the WWE Hall of Fame.
I agree. Unfortunately, I think if you do that, you're opening up old wounds, and then more articles, more podcasts, more everything gets brought up of, let's talk about the past. And then suddenly it's WWE's name next to Owen Hart death in articles, and they don't want that. Unfortunately, China, obviously China is a whole different story altogether, but she had her own issues that the company didn't want to talk about for so long. And then I don't know how it happened. I think just enough people were finally like, can we just do this? Maybe Owen Hart, because now he has an AEW action figure. They had an AEW women's and men's tournament to crown like the first ever Owen Hart Cup, and Adam Cole and Britt Baker won. So it was good to see that. but it's not like the same thing. Like I remember growing up with, Owen Hart and Camp Cornette with British Bulldog and Vader and Yoko and characters on the lines of that. You're not going to see that in AEW, but I'm very happy that at least his name is being brought up in today's world. But, let's talk about today's wrestling world, though, because we have big events coming up, Royal Rumble, and you guys called many, many, many Royal Rumbles. So in your professional opinions, who do you think actually has a chance of winning this? You got 30 people. When you really look down on the list, it's like 5, maybe 4 who actually have a chance of pulling this off. Do you have any perspective? Are you watching it and aware that who do you think is going to win?
I'll let Carlos hit it first, and then I will come.
I have no idea, really.
It's you, right. Carlos. You're going to win it. I knew it. You blew the scoop. We got it. We got it. Carlos Cabrera's going to win. Number 30.
To me, it's like the storylines. If they're going to take one of the titles from Roman Reigns, and we don't know now with Seth Rollins how bad his knee is, but from what we've been reporting, it was supposed to have him lose one of the belts before WrestleMania, and it was supposed to be either Seth freaking Rollins, Drew McIntyre, and Cody Rhodes on that one, and the second night Universal title, The Rock against Roman Reigns. But there's so many openings there, with Bad Bunny saying that he was going to take 2023 off, and him meeting Triple H at downtown Los Angeles, and then like 2 hours later, he making this news for his fans that he would take 2023 off. So we don't know if he's there on the show. And so there's many ways that they could do that, but in the equation, it all depends on if they're going to make him drop one of the belts, and who will Triple H believe that could win it on the Royal Rumble and go against Roman Reigns. But for order for that to happen, you also have to put in the equation John Cena and The Rock coming in last number at the Royal Rumble. Something has to happen. I think Triple H wants to create the 2 biggest nights of WrestleMania. He has the tools. I hope that what we saw on the first Raw of the year is not an indication of what is on his mind, because if that is the case, we're in very shaky grounds. But I think that WrestleMania 39 has the opportunity of creating big things. And if it's WrestleMania Hollywood, I believe that you should not leave Batista out of the equation, because of the fact that then you will have the opportunity of having 3 big guys from the Hollywood world that were 3 big guys in WWE, WWE. And if it's called WrestleMania Goes Hollywood, and then you have The Rock, and you have a Batista, and you have a John Cena right there. And then if you have Bad Bunny on it, and, we're talking about a crossover promotion unheard of. And I don't know how good Logan is. You have another influencer involved there, and Cody Rhodes coming back.
A lot of good stuff.
It's the ability to create.
So it's Carlos. Carlos is still winning, though, right? I just want to clarify. Carlos goes Hollywood.
You know that whenever Hugo talks, you got to pay attention, because the guy is giving you a lesson about being creative.
Yeah.
This idea of bringing all these former wrestlers, now actors, into the game is fantastic. With Bad Bunny and Logan, forget about it. So the question is, who is going to be wrestling for the title in WrestleMania 39?
These are the questions we need answers to. So far we have one contender. It's you, Carlos. So Hugo, if you have to put money down, I don't want to hear 4 picks. I want to hear 1 pick.
All right,
you got it.
I'm gonna go with The Rock.
The Rock. You go.
Remember, it's 2 nights, so that's
Yes.
gonna be. It's gonna be 2 big moments. I see first night, Seth or Cody Rhodes. I'll pick Cody Rhodes, and I will pick a shocker in the second night. If it's The Rock and Roman Reigns, I believe that The Rock will put Roman Reigns over to do what is correct for the business.
Yeah.
And I don't think too many people would dare to say that, but I think that that's the kind of person that Dwayne Johnson is. and I believe that he will do what is right. And I believe that they will potato each other like heck. There will be black eyes. Bloodline will come to a reality because it's real. It's a real tradition of the Samoan heritage, and to have two of the biggest stars there, I think that if it happens, The Rock will do the right thing, and he will put Roman Reigns over. And I predict that The Rock will somehow be the agent of his cousin, and he will be the guy in charge of making Roman another superhero in Hollywood. And at the same time he does that, he's going to make millions as the agent of Roman Reigns.
You gotta get that fast money. I love it so much. That's amazing. I hope this all happens. If it doesn't happen, I'm going to blame both of you. I just want to tell you right now, I love you so much, but I'll be angry at you. One final question, though. Biggest moment, biggest match. What's the biggest thing that's happened in front of your eyes that you were allowed to supply your voice to a golden moment to a professional wrestling fan?
Oh, le dieron a mi amigo! Le dieron a mi amigo!
The chair shot of Hulk Hogan.
When he potatoed you?
Yeah. Was it WrestleMania 17?
Oh, and what, Hogan versus Vince?
Yes.
19. That'd be 19.
19.
Yeah.
What worked was, it was a top secret. Carlos knew, Shane McMahon knew, the referee knew, and Vincent Hogan. And at the little meeting, Hogan says, those were the real heavy chairs they used before. He said, just put your hands, protect yourself. And I said to him, I'm old school. If you look at my matches, you never put your hands before, and you go head first into the ring post, you will go head first up. So that was my school. So I said to Hulk, I said, no, just let me have it. I don't put my hands. He says, I'm Hulk Hogan. I'm gonna let you have it. And I said, yeah. And he did. He made me believe in Hulk Hogan because he did so freaking hard. And the call of Carlos. How do you call it in Spanish, Carlos?
Rough translation. It would be, oh, they hit my friend. They hit my friend.
And in Spanish, Carlos?
Le dieron a mi amigo. Le dieron a mi amigo. Now,
so they hit my friend. They hit my buddy. That is still over. And I remember a conversation that Austin and Booker T were watching in the hallway in the back in the dressing room, and nobody knew. So when I get in the middle, Austin is saying to Book, Hugo's getting it away. He used the F word, but I'm not saying it here. Hugo's getting it the F way. And then when Vince ducks that Hogan hits me, then everybody knew what happened. But at that moment, nobody knew that it was going to happen. And wow, it was, to me, was big moments.
Yeah.
Flair against Shawn Michaels, the story that they told was also one of the biggest moments. The problem with selecting one good moment, and I hope the guys don't get upset. When at the time that Carlos and I did this, Attitude Era, there were great moments most of the freaking times.
Right.
Yes. Remember King of the Ring, Pittsburgh, Hell in a Cell, Undertaker, Mankind on top of our table.
Oh my
God. That was unforgettable, incredible.
How he survived?
I was gonna say, are you even told? Like in Mick Foley's book, he kind of gives like perspectives of like some people kind of knew, some people didn't really know. Are you aware he's gonna come flying on top of you?
We knew
Partially
after Undertaker, because what people don't really concentrate on was that Vince didn't make the final decision.
It was between Taker and Mankind.
It was up to Mark, the Undertaker, and they made the decision at the top of the Hell in a Cell because the Undertaker was afraid that Mick Foley, Mankind, was going to kill himself.
Right.
Because if you see the distance that he had to fly, and like if you were a plane, the small runway, and his body was going to collapse in the Spanish table that was not that big, and he had to land it because if he didn't land it from there, he was going to be dead.
No kidding. It's nuts.
Yeah. So when Mark or the Undertaker finally agreed, because Foley said to him, "You could have the best matches with Shawn Michaels, wrestling matches. with me, this is my moment. This is our moment. And Mick convinced him. He said, all my life, I've been waiting to do this. And when Mark, a true wrestler like he is, a passionate guy like he is, when you hear a guy like Mick Foley looking at your eyes on top of the freaking Hell in a Cell cage, saying to you, you could have the best matches with Shawn Michaels, but this is my moment. Give me this moment. And then after that conversation, we hear about it.
Okay.
We hear about it, but it was like within maybe 1 hour before. And then Carlos and I were so nervous because when we hit the ringside and sat down and looked at the top, and just imagine as that thing was going to come down, where the hell Mick was going to land. I still had hopes that somehow we were hear from Kevin Donovan saying it's off. It's off. Because many times things did happen where we were told, and at the last minute we would hear that no, that is off. I was still hoping that we were going to hear it's off.
It's off. But Hugo, remember, it's amazing that the guy goes up for a second fall.
I know.
I mean, nobody can do that but mankind.
Oh, no. Yeah. And we're doing the play-by-play. When he came in, even Mick will confess that he never predicted how fast his body was going to fly. See, because it's never had been done.
He skidded off that table.
Yeah. So once he's in the air, he says, because we have this conversation, that he didn't realize how fast his body came down. And it was like an explosion. Boom. And as he landed, those vacuum cleaners that you like that suction? It was like life was being taken out of his body because we had the headset and people were great, but we saw his eyes were like this way and like his life came out. And like Carlos pinpointed, even him and Mark did not know that little door up there was going to freaking collapse. And it could have been a tragedy if the Undertaker would have been on top of that and he would have landed on top of Mick. We would not even be talking about this right now. So that wasn't supposed to happen. To see the guy's tooth right through his lips and his rib cage, I don't even know how he was able to originally get up from the first bump, and second, how he's still alive today, how he's alive after that collapsing of that door, and he hit so hard that
he did.
If you just think about the,
but he comes out later that night too, though. He comes out later. It's not even like 3 hours. He comes out 20 minutes later to run down during a Kane Stone Cold Steve Austin match, and I believe he even wrestled the next night on Raw too.
Yes,
which is insane.
Yeah, the concussions rules were not active. I don't think sports medicine was still to the point where like it went after that about the way your brain suffers a concussion. Like right now, it doesn't matter who you are. If you are concussion, doesn't care if you're the main event on Raw the next day or in the pay-per-view, they will take you off the card. But back then, this man was able to get up and walk away from there. A true story about this is that there was like a noise coming out of his body. And I don't think he even realized. He was in so much pain that I think it was the inside of his body that was crying out. Like he wasn't controlling that. That was coming out.
Oh my God.
And even as Mark and him hugged afterwards, I think even the hugging hurt. That's how much in pain he was. There will only be one Undertaker and there will only be one Mankind. One Dude Love, one Cactus Jack.
Yeah.
When you see Mick away from the big lights of TV, he walks like this, like bent over. Just when they announce his name and play the music, he'll go straight. Another case like that is Shawn Michaels. He walks like this, but when he hears his name, they straighten out as a respect to who the people want to see.
Right.
But they pay their price. Each of them paid their price.
Oh my God. You've survived so much that a Spanish announce table clearly is a bullseye on both your backs, but you survived broken noses, broken fingers, all that stuff. But I got to say, it has been an honor sitting here chit chat with both of you today about everything underneath the sun, from Royal Rumble to Owen Hart to everything, because I think you two have a wealth of knowledge, and I think more people need to hear your stories. More people need to know the influence you had on the wrestling business. And I just want to say it's been an honor and a privilege talking to both of you today. So thank you, Hugo Savinovich, and thank you, Carlos Cabrera, for being here on 10 Count. I've been Steve Fall. They're the best. Appreciate them. Love them. Give them high fives, fist bumps, hugs if you want to. Have a good one, folks, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.